Long ago, in a quaint little village, there lived a poor shoemaker and his wife. They were both very honest people. The shoemaker owned a very small shop. Every day he made one pair of leather shoes, took them to the town market, and sold them. With the money that he earned, he bought fresh food and supple leather to make his next pair of shoes. One evening, the old shoemaker was not feeling well. Although he worked very hard, he could not finish making the one pair of shoes that he had been working on all that day. He became very worried because he knew if he did not sell the shoes, he would not have any money to buy food and leather. He was not able to finish the pair of shoes that night, and so he had a very restless sleep. The next morning, when the old shoemaker went to his shop, he was surprised to find a beautiful pair of brown leather shoes on his work table. He was very excited, and he asked his wife if she had finished making them. To his surprise, he found out that she had not finished the shoes. Nevertheless, the shoemaker was very happy. He went to market and put the pair of shoes up for sale. The old shoemaker was able to sell those shoes for a good price that day. He made almost double the money that he made on his regular shoes. Now, with all the money he'd earned from that one pair of shoes, he was able to buy enough leather to make several pairs of shoes. And he also bought some delicious food for their supper that evening. The old shoemaker was able to cut 3 pairs of shoes from the leather he had purchased that day. His wife helped him for a little while, but soon they both became very tired. They both went to bed. The next morning, the shoemaker had an even bigger surprise. On his table, there were 3 pairs of new shoes, completely finished. They were perfectly made, and the supple leather was gleaming brightly. He immediately called his wife and asked her if she had finished making them. He was spellbound to discover that she didn't do it at all. As soon as the shoemaker displayed the shoes for sale at the town market, customers started coming, and within an hour, all 3 pairs were sold. Now he had a lot of money, and he could buy enough leather to make more pairs of shoes. But the couple wondered who was making the shoes for them in the middle of the night. While sipping their afternoon tea, the wife said, "There must be someone who is helping us finish the shoes." "Yes, dear, but who could it be?" asked the shoemaker. They decided to stay awake that night and watch from behind the curtains. The shoemaker and his wife cut several pieces of leather and hid themselves behind the curtains. They waited for a long time, but nobody came. They waited and waited until the clock struck midnight, and then they heard a noise. They pulled the curtain back to take a peep, and saw 2 tiny men with large ears sitting on the table. The tiny men were singing and stitching shoes. They were elves. Elves were helping the shoemaker make his shoes. Once the elves had left, the shoemaker and his wife inspected the lovely leather shoes that the elves had finished. They were so happy. The shoemaker and his wife decided that they could not thank the elves with words alone. They thought they could repay them by making them some clothes. The wife stitched some tiny clothes out of her best fabric, and she put them on the work table for the elves to find. Again that night, the shoemaker and his wife hid themselves behind the curtain. The elves came and were delighted with what they saw. They found beautifully stitched little clothing made just for them. They were overjoyed to see the tiny shirts, tiny coats, and tiny caps. They put them on at once and started to sing and dance with joy. The shoemaker and his wife were very happy to see this. The shoemaker and his wife made a lot of money by selling the shoes. They became very rich. They bought good things for themselves. But the kind-hearted shoemaker also bought clothes and sweets for the poor children. They told stories of the elves and their kindness to all the children they met. They would never forget the elves and how they had helped them.